Remember at the end of the final Lord of the Rings film when Frodo just has that face of like utter relief after the ring has been tossed into the fires of Mount Doom and he just says it's done? That's how it felt to watch the finale to Born Again, because the only positive feeling I had by the end of it was, oh thank goodness it's stopped. It's not ended, but it's stopped. And this will be my getting off point. This is my stop on this horrible train wreck. I have no interest in watching anymore. So, the finale, episode 9, it was very, very bad, which immediately went against something I predicted, because yesterday on stream I predicted they'll really, really try, because they want people to leave the series with a positive note. They'll want people to come away from the season being like, you know, it had its iffy points, but that finale was so good. It had great fighting, great action, great story, and that will carry people over until season 5 next year, / the second half of this original season 4. And no, I wanted to turn it off a minute in because of how much continuity was broken by their attempt to plug plot holes. The episode begins after an ad for a Disney Plus show and a recap, and for some reason the intro title screen wasn't skippable this time. It starts with a flashback to in between where the Netflix seasons ended off and where the episode 1 of Born Again began. So I think it said 1.5 years ago. Can't quite remember. Either way, it's Vanessa, and this is them trying to answer one of the questions. Vanessa is in a psychiatric hospital talking to Bullseye. Bullseye is there, his hands are not mittened up, so you'd think he'd be a danger, but no. It is post him having the surgery so his back isn't broken, because otherwise he wouldn't be upright. But he's very clearly heavily medicated, and the actor, to his credit, does a pretty good job being like, he is listening and he is responding, but you can tell like he's very hazy and not quite all there. So he's very heavily medicated, and Vanessa is talking to him. And this is set during the time where Fisk vanished to go be an Echo or whatever, or to raise Echo as a surrogate daughter. So Vanessa's on her own running the criminal empire, and she comes to Bullseye saying she needs his help to deal with an issue. And she trusts him to do it because he's just so good at his job. Keeping in mind his previous job, prior to just kind of working for Fisk and then turning on Fisk, he was just an FBI guy, I think, or CIA. He was part of some law enforcement. That's how Fisk met him. So he's kind of not fully there, not fully cognitive, but he's listening anyway, like why me, etc. She puts a contract or a release form ahead of him, and this is where things start to instantly fall apart, because she says that after Agent Nadim was murdered, the fallout from the corruption in the FBI led to all of the charges against Fisk being dropped. This has monumental problems for many, many reasons. In case you don't know who Agent Nadim is, he was a pivotal character in Season 3 of Daredevil, a very good character. He is an FBI agent who teams up with Matt. He doesn't like vigilantes at first. He teams up with Matt when he realizes it's the only way to kind of get Kingpin, and as he is dying or about to be killed because he knows an assassin is coming after him, he films a confession on his phone detailing all of Fisk's crimes and sends it to his wife, who gives it to Karen. Karen publishes it, and that kind of what brings down Kingpin in the season 3 finale. And a part of what happened back then in season 3 that I'd actually forgotten, and I think they hope everyone has forgotten, is that the leverage that Matt has over Kingpin at the end of season 3 is that Agent Nadim's death was ordered by Vanessa. She ordered him killed, and Matt has the ability to prove that, which is why he makes that deal with Kingpin. Hey, you don't tell anyone I'm Daredevil, you don't go after Foggy, you don't go after Karen, and I won't get your wife arrested for murder, is actually what the deal was. I forgot that detail, and I really think they hoped most people did. So apparently after Agent Nadim was murdered on Vanessa's order, she didn't pull the trigger, but she ordered it to try and cover up her husband's crimes. Apparently that proved enough corruption in the FBI that all charges against Fisk, including murder, were dropped. I don't know about the American legal system, but that does not sound like how it would work. But that is their excuse for how Kingpin had all charges dropped against him and how he became a free man. It's bullshit. It's absolute nonsense. There's no money involved. It's just he was acquitted, I think was the word they used, because of the corruption in the FBI being exposed. Utter nonsense. And even if that was all taken as, yep, that makes perfect sense, she still would not go to Bullseye, because the last thing she saw him do was try and kill her. Not very well either, because not only did he fail to kill her, he kept failing to kill her husband, and he got his ass kicked by both her husband and Daredevil. So he's not a competent killer in her eyes based on what she has seen him do. But nevertheless, she goes to him in the psychiatric hospital to get him acquitted. Or out of jail, or out of the psychiatric ward, wherever the hell he is. Off his meds and under her thumb. And in his kind of like not fully cognizant state, he signs the thing she put in front of him, and that's to explain why he then went on to shoot Foggy. She states that it's because he was getting too close to something called Red Rock, which we'll hear more about later, and that kind of coincides with Matt looking into it eventually as well. But that flashback breaks so much of the coherency between Season 3 and this technically Season 4. It doesn't make any sense, and their efforts to patch plot holes has just made like water burst out of the plot hole pipe elsewhere that's even worse. It completely breaks everything. It's horrible. So the last episode ended. Let's leave that flashback because it's just absolutely horrible. It cuts back to present time where Bullseye is aiming his rifle. You remember the last episode ended with him taking a shot at Fisk and Matt downing Mr. President him to save his life. And he does hover over Vanessa, not in a way that implies he's going to be shooting her. Then he hovers over to Fisk, fires, Matt gets in the way, takes the bullet. So, does that answer any questions about whether or not Bullseye wanted to kill Fisk by himself? Or Vanessa told him to? Vanessa paid him to? Is it connected to Vanessa apparently trying to help the Tracksuit Mafia assassinate Fisk? None of these questions will be answered by the episode, and I don't think it's because they want intrigue. I think it's because the whole series has had a very problematic, systematic issue with not presenting information to the audience well, because they are not committing to as much as possible. They want things as vague as possible because they don't know where they're going with it, and I think that's one such instance. So was Bullseye just trying to get revenge and kill Fisk, even though Vanessa got him out of jail originally? It could just be as juvenile as, well, Fisk put him in general population to try and get him killed, so that's why he went to go kill Fisk, rather than say he could ruin their marriage. He could just like try and get Fisk and phone him and say, by the way, your wife got me to do this, this and this and everything else. It's very strange, but hey, either way, he took the shot at Kingpin. Matt saved Kingpin. Cuts to Matt in a hospital bed. He wakes up, he calls out to Karen, which makes his bitch of a girlfriend do a resting bitch face scowl at him, even though he's blind. His law firm co-owner person is there as well, because she's there to say things and feed him information because she doesn't have a personality. And he immediately wakes up and wants to know more about the case Foggy was working the night he was killed. And it does seem like Foggy is dead, incidentally. There was like rumours like, oh, he'll come back. They might still do. Oh, my doorbell rang. I'm not expecting any parcels, so I'm just going to ignore it and hope that it's nothing important. He wakes up and immediately starts asking questions about the case Foggy was working when he was shot. And he finds out about Red Rock, but he needs more information because he doesn't know what specifically Foggy filed. And he needs to know because that's what got him killed. And he doesn't know where to look. And there was a follow-up knock at the door. Dare I go AFK? It's not... no. Hopefully they'll just move on. It's going to be a door-to-door salesman, and I'm mid-flow, and I hate getting interrupted mid-flow. Anyway. Cut to the mayor's office, I believe is next, and Kingpin is travelling down his I'm evil now pathway. He's being fast-tracked down the evil skill tree to like the level 100 mob boss. And He is wanting to impose martial law on New York and impose new laws and get his task force out on the streets. He asks his that's a very aggressive. Okay, I'm gonna go check. It's very annoying, chat. I'm sorry, I'll be back in a minute. Let me just go have a look. Now I know why they were being so persistent. It's a pizza for across the street. Remember the address is very similar to mine? It's for them. That's annoying. Okay, where was I? Chat, remind me. What was I saying? Okay, yeah, interrupted mid-flow. Sounds like a middle-aged man. It was... Matt just woke up in hospital. No. Kingpin in his office. Okay, let's see. He wants martial law. He wants more anti-vigilante laws. Martial law, yeah. So, the lady that's kind of been telling him no constantly, he asks her to single out everyone who isn't on his side in the office and kick them out. Get rid of them. He thinks she's on his side, but she kind of is at this point. Kind of. Like, she doesn't really like how he does things. But she agrees. As she's leaving, she talks to the police commissioner, who tries to get her on side, because he wants Fisk out at this point. And then he asks to see somebody from the power station, and coincidentally, I guess it doesn't matter if it's coincidental or not, obviously this is him doing this, all the power in New York goes out. Complete blackout. Although just prior to that, he's talking to his English crony, who says, oh, you know, Matt Murdock taking a bullet for you is bad optics for us. And he says, no, we can use it to our advantage. A dead hero is better than a live vigilante. So I guess he's also just told his staff that Matt is Daredevil, although he isn't specific. So the English guy nods and leaves, with the plan being, if Matt dies, they'll just say it was taking a bullet to save Fisk. Makes him look like a hero. If he lives as a vigilante, then he's obviously against what Fisk is apparently standing for now. So the English guy leaves, then the power goes out, while he's at the hospital waiting to sneak in to inject Matt with poison, which he apparently has. I guess he stole it from somewhere in the hospital. Matt hears him coming, somehow knows it's someone, a ne'er-do-well, who's just up to no good. So just wearing a nightgown with his bare ass showing, you don't see it, but it is confirmed by someone in the next scene. He just sneaks out of his room before the guy gets in there. All the lights are out, so he's actually able to see better than everyone else right now, technically. And I guess the hospital must have been real close to his apartment, because he can't drive. I mean, I guess technically he could, but he doesn't. He somehow gets from the hospital to his apartment. Pitch black city, people start rioting. A lot of people, it shows a lot of people rioting, and yet there's a lot of movement around the city in this next couple of scenes where nothing happens or gets in the way. He gets back to his apartment in just his nightgown, still nursing a bullet wound to his upper shoulder. Sits down in his seat and says, "Who told you to come find me?" And then the camera kind of pans and, oh look, it's Frank. The Punisher is there. And it says, oh, I got a phone call from a friend, but he doesn't elaborate further at this point. So this is the bit where I wish I'd got to before I had to go shout out my window at the delivery guy. Amongst the conversation that Frank and Matt have, Frank says, "Why the hell did you take a bullet for that piece of shit?" Something along those lines, obviously meaning Kingpin. And we finally get the chance to hear Matt's reasoning as to why he did it. And I'm curious what you think it is. This is the only reason we're getting for the entire episode, by the way. What is Matt's reasoning? How does he answer Frank? Like, what does he say is his reasoning for taking that bullet for Fisk? Incidentally, when he's describing the moment, he says, "Oh, I just heard a bullet and reacted." That's not him giving the excuse. The excuse comes later, but that also does not make sense. Like, he heard the rifle cock as he did in episode 1. He knew it was going to be fired. Because he could? Is there any other guesses? Just remember the setup to his answer is the Punisher saying, "Why the hell did you take a bullet for that piece of shit?" or words to that effect. I think that son of a bitch, I think is what he said, but either way. Because he wants to defeat Kingpin on his own terms? Because raisins? You're closest without going over. He smiles and kind of just goes, "Huh, that's a good question." That's it. That's the reason. Now, you could technically argue, if you wanted to be really, really, really trying to do good faith, that they get interrupted. However, they're not immediately interrupted. There is a pause. That's all the reasoning Matt gives. So in my mind, that is all he is giving. Like, it is not because they get interrupted. But he hears, or I think Frank mentioned, you know, there's guys outside, right? And he says, yeah, it's the task force coming to kill him. This episode also forgets how many people are in the task force. When Fisk makes the task force, the chief of police looks at the list and says, "Oh, this is every bad apple in the bunch," and he's flipping through their profiles of the cops he's getting on side. Maybe there's a dozen, maybe. I think I'm being generous to say it's a dozen. This episode will go on to show at least a dozen of them, maybe more, getting murdered, and then maybe 3 dozen more not dead. So it is a private army at this point. Where he got them from, who knows? It is not explained, nor will they ever explain it. But the task force is there. I don't know why the task force are there. I think they're after Matt, because they don't seem to know that Matt is Daredevil. So Matt has time to suit up, incidentally, as well. I forgot about that part. So clearly he wasn't interrupted. Yeah, never mind. He was not interrupted because he had time to change out of his suit, because that's how you know his bare arse is showing, because Frank pointed out, he's like, "Are you going to fight them like that, or are you going to put on a costume?" Or I think he says, like, "You're going to fight with your bare ass out, or are you going to..." Yeah, so anyway, he puts on the costume, and the task force break in, and a fight scene ensues. Frank sneaks round back and comes in with a shotgun, and Daredevil's not fighting it like prime fighting, because he's kind of fighting one-handed because his shoulder blade is still wounded under the armor. He's mostly making use of his baton hook. And Frank comes in guns blazing. Like, he is taking no prisoners, he is shooting to kill. He warns Daredevil that that's what he's going to do. Daredevil is just trying to knock people out. During the fight, there's probably the worst example of poorly delivered ADR in the entire season, and unfortunately it's from Charlie Cox, who's Daredevil. He's a great actor, but the ADR, while Punisher is just like putting a shotgun between someone's body armor and their neck and pulling the trigger to a fountain of CG blood, you just hear Daredevil say, "Frank, stop." I'm putting too much. Frank, stop. It's like that. It's like there's so little emotion for. Not only should there be emotion because he's angry at him killing cops, even if they're crooked cops, he's exerting himself at the same time as him supposed to be saying this. Like, he's fighting. He's holding his own ish. And he's fighting, so he'd be sounding like tired, at least a little bit, or like he's exerting himself as he's like, "Frank, stop!" Like that, like, you know. But no, Frank, stop. It's the worst ADR in the season I've heard so far, and it's really unfortunate that it came from one of the best actors in the show, unfortunately. But they take out the people. Frank is killing them all. There's one guy left alive who is very clearly wearing the body armor of the person who killed White Tiger. Frank picks up a shell casing. It's got the Punisher logo on it, and he says, "Hey Red, looks like this is your guy." He walks over, and it is a cop we've seen so far. It happened to be the cop that Kingpin asked the backstory of when he was making his task force, where there was also barely 12 people present, for the record. And I think he said, like, he got too rough with I was going to say client, a suspect, and killed them. Like, that's why he's a bad apple. But anyway, so that's the guy. And Daredevil's shouting at him about how Hector was a good man and he shouldn't have done that. And the cop just laughs at him, says something. And in the background, the Punisher just says, "Kill him. Do it. Kill him." And you can see that Matt's wrestling with it. I wouldn't say the acting is as good as when he's debating in his head whether or not to snap Kingpin's neck at the end of Season 3. That's probably the peak for that type of scene. But he just knocks him out. and then Punisher's kind of disgusted at him for not going through with it. He pulls out a pistol, points it at someone else who Matt knocked out that was next to him, shoots them in the head, and was just like, what about him? Was he okay? So, you know. So he doesn't kill him. They start arguing, he shouts at him, and then in the conversation this time does get cut off by Daredevil shouting grenade, and then Frank going, what? Grenade! And then they both run, jump out the veranda. I presume Punisher was just expecting to die at this point because he's only saved because Daredevil grabs him and then baton hooks them both onto a car. But a grenade gets chucked in and Matt's apartment is completely explodinated, so that cop died anyway, as did every other one that was knocked out in there. So you'd assume that was a large portion of the task force dead, but as it's stated, you see like an army. So they're just multiplying. It's like Hydra, you kill one and two more pop up. It's ridiculous. So they land in the street, and it just so happens, again, despite the fact that the city's under martial law, there's no power, etc., that Karen just rocks up in a car and was there for them and was able to drive through streets, which are oddly empty for the scene with the three of them, but apparently there's rioting going on. So she sees them, there's a little reunion, and they all get in and drive to Frank's base of operation that was in episode 4 to kind of recuperate and work out what's going on. In the meantime, Fisk is blackmailing the city officials to approve a anti-vigilante thing, like more rules against them. It's like, I've mentioned this previously, but they don't know the definition of vigilante. By definition, I guess, if you want to get really technical, the things vigilantes do are illegal. But they keep on mistaking the word vigilante for meaning like killer. Vigilantes are doing crime fighting illegally. That's the distinction that the show keeps forgetting. I don't think they know the definition of the word vigilante, and it really grates on me that it doesn't. But so yeah, he's bribing all these people to give him martial law powers over New York, and to go ahead with his dock plans. And it turns out that's Red Rock. Red Rock is the name of the docks. Oh yeah, they go to Foggy's, where you keep, like, storage unit, that's what they call them. They go to Foggy's old storage unit and they find out via his old files that's what Red Rock was. And this is where they break reality again a little bit, because what Red Rock was prior to all this going on, when just Vanessa was using it, using legal loopholes and weird laws, it was like its own individual state or something. I really should have listened to the dialogue again, but I was just flabbergasted at how stupid it was. So that it wasn't under the jurisdiction of New York, so she could keep her art and illegal activities there, and they wouldn't be breaking any rules for New York. So like a legal loophole. Foggy was doing a case that would close that legal loophole, which is why Vanessa hired Bullseye to kill him. That's the reason. And now that Fisk is kind of turning evil, he's wanting to build up Red Rock, the docks, to the point where it's its own individual state. So not even state, like country or land or whatever. Like they specified it wouldn't be needing to adhere to the rules of New York or America, which is insane. But that's their end game, that's their goal, which is just so stupid. But while they're away doing that, Punisher stays behind at his base listening to a radio he stole before he and Matt escaped from Matt's apartment exploding, and he hears them all say, we're going back to Red Rock, we're going to Red Rock. And I had an awful moment where I was like, oh no, are they going to kill off Frank? Because it shows Frank going to Red Rock alone. I was almost right. They thankfully didn't kill him off, but he kind of makes his presence known to all the people wearing his logo there, and I think they were trying to do something like making Frank face the consequences of his actions. It does not work on that level at all. You do get to see him just mess up more of a task force. Like, he is fighting to kill, and they have ADR of someone saying non-lethal rounds only because they want to capture him. So while he is slitting their throats and like just blasting them and murdering all of them, they're like getting through his armor with non-lethal rounds, and eventually they take him down. They try and get him to join their side. He refuses. They beat him up and they put him in a cell. And that's about it, really, in terms of action scenes. That's the last action scene. They made a big mistake wounding Matt, so he couldn't do any cool fighting in the finale. because that's it for him, essentially. Karen and Matt, still in his Daredevil costume, go to Red Rock. Matt says, okay, stay here, I'm going to go in. Karen convinces him that if he goes in, he's just going to die because he's in no condition to fight, and it shows that there's a huge army. So where they came from, who cares? They're not going to explain it. But there's like an army of anti-vigilante task force now. So Matt agrees eventually, and they back away. Now there is one storyline I forgot to follow through on while I was describing all this, because it's kind of running intersectedly with after the Punisher gets caught but before Matt and Karen get there. The aide that works for Fisk that kind of keeps on telling him not to do things, she dobs in the police chief. She's scared for her life, so she tells Fisk that the police chief is going out of the city to get as many people against him as possible. So out of fear, she has sided with Kingpin and betrayed the police chief. So the police chief gets in his car, and at that point, as soon as I saw he was betrayed, it's like, okay, you're going to die then. I had no idea he would die in such a hilarious fashion, but he does. I knew at that point he was dead. Fisk gets one of his drivers to replace the cop's driver, takes the police chief to Red Rock, and has him prisoner there. A bunch of the crooked cops are there, a bunch of his crooked political staff are there, and he gives Jason Voorhees a run for his money in terms of hilariously killing someone. He kills the police chief by knocking him to his knees and then crushing his skull with one hand and ripping his lower jaw off with his other in a ridiculously over-the-top, pretty good-looking bit of gore that would not look out of place in a Friday the 13th movie. It also means they've once again implied Kingpin has superhuman strength, because Jason is implied to have superhuman strength, which is how he's able to crush a man's skull in his hands. So, yeah, Jason Voorhees, there's a new killer in town and it's Kingpin. I guess eating all those steaks just made him really strong. But, yeah, I was surprised at how gory it was. It made me laugh. It made me remember the Friday the 13th movies. Those are very funny movies. I don't think that's what they were going for. I also don't really know why Fisk did it. Fisk is the kind of person to only lash out like that in extreme rage, or when really necessary, and even then probably not that violently. He would have just told someone to shoot the guy, but they wanted to make it dramatic so you remember it because it's the finale. So the police chief is dead, so that's another potential ally gone, and it further cements that he has full control of the police force, because the Avengers don't exist. I mean, I guess in general the Avengers don't exist in the MCU anymore, but there's no heroes, no military, nobody called up Wakanda and asked them to help out or whatever. No Captain America. Nothing. There wasn't even any cameos. I was expecting some cameos. In fact, we can go to the final scene of the season. Oh, actually, no, one more scene before that. Vanessa and Kingpin, hand in hand, walking through Red Rock. They've got a bunch of cages where they have just people captured. They have the Punisher. They have the rich elite that were against them, the staff that were against them, and Swordsman is there in one of the cages as well. And then they just go sit together and have a nice steak dinner and just laugh with each other to, I guess, imply, hey, they're evil and they're together again. And Vanessa doesn't seem to be faking it, so why did she try and help Luca almost kill him? That'll never be answered, probably. Then it cuts to the final scene, which is Karen and Matt talking in Josie's bar, and then about, just standing up to Fisk. Then they go out, it's kind of in silhouette, and their group of allies are there. And I thought, oh, they're going to have cameos here, because I saw someone with long black hair, and I thought, oh, that's Jessica Jones. It is not. There's no one of interest. Who's his team? He actually says we need to form an army, by the way. Who's his team waiting for him in Josie's bar? Josie, who is a really old lady. Cherry, I think his name is, which is his PI, private investigating ex-cop friend who doesn't like him being Daredevil but now seems to be okay with it. The negotiator from the bank heist episode, Cop Lady, which is the one with the long black hair that I thought was Jessica Jones. And a couple of cops. There's a couple of cops in uniform there. And I think that's it. Am I forgetting anyone? You might notice I didn't say Matt's girlfriend is there. That's because Kingpin has asked her to be the head of mental health for his mayoral party, and she agrees, meaning she's on Team Evil, which was obvious thanks to last time when she was a bitch. And that is where it ends. It ends with Kingpin basically being in control of a martial law imposed city. There was no good fight scenes, although the Punisher just murdering a bunch of crooked cops was kind of fun. The extreme gore of Kingpin killing the chief of police was hilarious. I don't think that's the emotion they were going for. But the season as a whole was an absolute waste of time. Episodes 2 through 7 you don't need to watch. Episode 1, Episode 8, Episode 9 at least tell a story, sort of. But it's shit. There was nothing redeemable here whatsoever. It was an utter waste of time, a waste of money. God knows how much money they spent doing reshoots and reshooting in episode 1, trying desperately to patch something together that attached to the Netflix show. I presume they're going to set up that in the next season / the second half of this season, they will do something akin to reforming the Defenders. They probably won't have Spider-Man because of the right issues regarding having Spider-Man in anything, but they could have Jessica Jones and Luke Cage and Danny Rand, I don't know who else. I mean, when you think about it, in New York, the Thunderbolts are in New York, the Avengers aren't really formed right now, but you've got the Sanctum Sanctorum with Doctor Strange, he's in the town, he's probably concerned about what's going on in the city. Oh wait, no, he went off into the multiverse. Wong has to guard the Sanctum Sanctorum, so he's probably aware of what's going on. Swordsman is the boyfriend of Kate Bishop's mother, and Kate Bishop is part of the Young Avengers as of the end of the Marvels, I think, when Miss Marvel recruits her. So surely they would notice that he's gone missing. It's just an utterly nonsensical situation trying to ramp up. Like, the Marvel movies have this problem of ramping things up too much, where every movie is a multiversal ending threat. This is smaller, this is like a city ending threat, but it's such a ludicrous manner in which they've gone about it. It doesn't make any sense. Kingpin has not been threatening for the entire season, that is still true after this episode. He's probably suffered the most from just being poorly written. I would have been fine with Vanessa taking over. I think they originally were going to kill Kingpin off and have Vanessa take his place. I feel like that's what they were going to do. But they backed out because people want to see Daredevil and Kingpin fight. Kingpin and Daredevil had one conversation in episode 1, by the way. I think he said, "May I cut in episode 8 when he dances with Vanessa to tell her that he knows she ordered Foggy's death. Other than that, him and Fisk have not talked. Ever. I'm pretty sure they have not had any other conversation. So, yeah, it's not good. I recommend absolutely avoiding it. It is not worth getting Disney Plus for. Watch the Netflix Daredevil. I think you can buy DVDs of it still. They used to be available because I've got them. If you do have Disney Plus, just watch those. Pretend it ended after season 3. Whatever this simulacrum wearing the old show's face over a rotting corpse is just, it's not anything of value. Everybody involved has wasted their time. If they were going to improve it in the season that they're filming right now to air next year, I would say get better writers, better quality, use more ropes and practical effects as opposed to floppy jellyman looking CG. Plan out what you're doing with your characters in advance. Don't fire and forget villains. Make it more realistic, more ground down to earth, and just do better, Senator, to quote Captain Falcon Man. Yeah, it was absolutely horrible. Don't watch it. It's shit. It's absolute garbage. As a fan of the Netflix show, it's probably one of the worst things on Disney Plus for Marvel related content. She-Hulk, in terms of like objective quality, is probably the worst they did, and they ruined Matt in that as well. But as a fan of the Netflix show, this is just them raping the corpse, basically. So, on that positive note, let's just move on.